My son's hands slam my back, glasses flying, wind screaming, 70 feet of sky and rock. 40 feet down, my leg snaps. 30 feet above, he smiles. They're done. Just like 30 years. One dead brother. 350,000 a motive. Coyotes, November cold. A phone recording he never knew, ready to play. The impact came so fast, I didn't have time to scream. One moment I was standing on the trail at Red Rock Canyon, admiring the October sunset painting Colorado's rocks the color of dried blood. The next, hands, my son's hands, slammed into my back with the force of someone who'd been planning this for months, maybe years. My glasses flew off first. I remember that detail with crystalline clarity. Then the world became a spinning nightmare of rock and sky and the wind screaming in my ears like all the warnings I'd ignored. 70 feet of vertical drop, 70 feet to contemplate every single mistake that brought me to this moment. I hit a ledge about 40 feet down. The sound my left leg made, a wet crack like a branch snapping, told me I wouldn't be walking out of this canyon. Next to me, crumpled against the rock face like discarded laundry, was my husband Henry. Blood streamed from a gash above his eye, turning his silver hair crimson. "Hilda," he whispered, using my middle name like he always did when he was terrified. "Don't move. Don't make a sound. Play dead." His voice carried an edge of knowledge that chilled me more than the November wind. He knew our son would come back. He knew because this wasn't the first time. Above us, maybe 30 feet up, I heard boots scrabbling on loose rock. Damien's voice drifted down, breathless with exertion and something else, something that sounded horribly like excitement. "You see them, babe?" he called out. A woman's voice answered. "Melissa." My daughter-in-law's tone dripped with honey-coated poison. Are they gone? Let me check." More rocks stumbled. I pressed my face against cold stone, tasting copper and dirt. Every instinct screamed at me to move, to call for help, to do something. But Henry's hand found mine in the growing darkness, squeezing once. "Trust me. Stay still." Damien's shadow fell across us. I could smell his cologne, the expensive kind I'd bought him last Christmas, back when I still believed my boy was good. Back when I thought the problem was just gambling debts and bad choices, not something rotten at his core. "Yeah," he said, and I heard the smile in his voice. That's what broke something inside me. Not the fall, not the pain, but hearing my son smile while looking at our broken bodies. They're done. Both of them. Just like... He stopped himself. But in that pause lived 30 years of terrible truth. "Just like what?" Melissa pressed. "Nothing, let's go. We need to be back in Denver before anyone notices we're gone." "What about the bodies? Shouldn't we..." "Nature will take care of it. Coyotes, weather, whatever. By the time anyone finds them, it'll just look like two old folks who wandered off trail. Happens all the time out here." Their footsteps retreated. I counted to 200 before I dared to breathe normally. Beside me, Henry was crying silently, his whole body shaking. "Gloria," he said, using my real name now. "I have to tell you something. About Ricardo. My firstborn. My beautiful Ricardo, who died 30 years ago on a family hike. Fell from a cliff, they said. Tragic accident, they said. He was only 17. Damien pushed him," Henry whispered into the darkness. "I saw it, but I told myself I was wrong. That it was an accident. That Damien was just a kid. He didn't mean to..." The world tilted again, though I wasn't falling anymore. "You knew?" My voice came out broken, matching my body. "You knew for 30 years that Damien murdered his own brother, and you said nothing? I thought I was protecting him, protecting us. If I'd reported it, we'd lose both sons. I convinced myself it was an accident, that I'd seen wrong, that..." "Stop." I couldn't hear anymore. Couldn't process that the man I'd spent 42 years with had hidden this from me. That I'd mourned Ricardo while raising his killer. That I'd kissed Damien's forehead and made his favorite meals and paid for his mistakes while he was a murderer. My leg throbbed with each heartbeat. In the distance, a coyote howled. The temperature was dropping fast. Mid-November in Colorado could kill you even if the fall didn't. Henry shifted, and I heard him gasp in pain. My phone. It was in my pocket. Recording. What? I always record the hikes, the sounds of nature, for my meditation app. It was running when understanding struck like lightning. It caught everything. Everything. I'm so grateful you're here listening to my story. When I decided to share this, I wasn't sure anyone would believe that a mother could send her own son to prison. If you've ever loved someone who didn't deserve it or stayed silent about something that ate you alive, leave a like on this video. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I want to know how far this truth travels. Now let me tell you about the 4 hours we spent on that ledge, waiting for death or rescue, whichever came first. The cold was the worst part. Not the broken bones or the blood or even the knowledge that my son had tried to murder us. It was the cold seeping into my core, making me drowsy in that dangerous way where you just want to close your eyes and be asleep. Henry kept talking to keep me awake. He told me everything. How Damien at 15 had shown early signs, cruelty to animals, lies that came too easily, a charm that felt rehearsed. How the guidance counselor at Morrison Middle School had pulled Henry aside with concerns. How they tried therapy once, but Damien convinced everyone he was fine, that his brother was the troubled one. Ricardo knew, Henry said. Your firstborn knew his little brother was dangerous. He told me once, about 2 months before the fall. Said Damien scared him. Said there was something missing behind his eyes. Each revelation felt like another blow. I'd been a teacher for 40 years at Denver Public Schools. I'd spotted troubled kids, helped dozens find their way. But I'd been completely blind to the monster sleeping in the bedroom next to mine. Around midnight, Henry's phone, miraculously intact despite the fall, finally got enough signal to make a call. His hands were shaking so badly I had to dial. I called 911 first, then, at the dispatcher's insistence, stayed on the line while they triangulated our position. The rescue took 3 more hours. By the time the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group hauled us up on stretchers, the sun was rising over the canyon, painting everything gold. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Damien and Melissa would be waking up in our house right now. The house they'd already mentally redecorated, I was sure, counting their chickens, planning their future with our money. At Denver Health Medical Center, while doctors set my shattered femur and treated Henry's concussion and 3 broken ribs, Detective Sarah Harris from the Denver Police Department sat beside my hospital bed. She was a woman in her early 40s with steel-gray eyes that had seen too much, and she listened to our story without interruption. When Henry played the recording on his phone, the crunch of impact, our screams, and then that damning conversation floating down through the canyon air, her jaw tightened. Mrs. Thompson, she said quietly, you've just handed me a first-degree attempted murder case with a confession. But I need to know, are you prepared to testify against your own son? I looked at my hands. Teacher's hands, scarred from 40 years of chalk dust and playground duty and holding small children while they cried. These hands had wiped Damien's tears, braided his hair when he went through that phase at 8, applauded at his high school graduation. These hands had failed to protect Ricardo. He killed my firstborn and tried to finish the job with us, I said, my voice steady despite everything. He's not my son anymore. He stopped being my son the day he pushed Ricardo off that cliff. Detective Harris nodded slowly. There's something else you should know. We've been watching Damien for 3 months. He's connected to a gambling ring operating out of Colorado Springs, owes around $140,000 to some very dangerous people. We think... That's why he needs the money, I interrupted. Not just wants, needs. Yes, ma'am. And there's more. She pulled out a folder, and what I saw inside made my blood freeze despite the heated hospital blankets. Insurance documents. A life insurance policy for $350,000 taken out on both Henry and me 6 months ago. Beneficiary, Damian Thompson. Co-signer, Melissa Thompson. Your daughter-in-law works at Mountain States Insurance, Detective Harris continued. She processed this policy herself, forged your signatures. We pulled your actual signatures from DMV records, not even close to matching. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. $250,000 in our joint savings account, $350,000 in fraudulent life insurance, $140,000 in gambling debts. $460,000 total. They stood to gain $140,000 they needed immediately. $320,000 pure profit from killing us. For 40 years, I'd saved every extra dollar from my teacher's salary. Every summer, I didn't take vacation. Every time I bought the store brand cereal instead of name brand. Every gift I gave Damien instead of ourselves. All of it calculated down to the dollar, planned to the day. They tried to cash out my entire life for less than the cost of a small house in Denver. There's something else on that recording, Henry said suddenly. His face had gone pale. Play it again, detective. The part right after he says, "They're done." Detective Harris rewound the audio. Damien's voice filled the sterile hospital room. "They're done. Both of them. Just like." "There," Henry said. "Just like." He was going to say, "just like Ricardo," or "just like last time." He stopped himself, but the implication is there. Combined with my testimony about what I witnessed 30 years ago, we can reopen the Ricardo Thompson case, Detective Harris finished. Especially since that happened in Jefferson County, same jurisdiction. The statute of limitations doesn't apply to murder. I close my eyes. My beautiful Ricardo, 17 years old, with his whole life ahead of him. He'd wanted to study veterinary medicine at Colorado State. He'd been accepted. We were so proud. And his little brother had erased him like he was nothing. When I opened my eyes again, something had crystallized inside me. Something cold and sharp and absolutely certain. "I want to press every charge possible," I said, "against both of them. I want them to pay for Ricardo. I want them to pay for trying to kill us. I want them to pay for every single dollar they tried to steal and every single lie they told. I want the world to know exactly what they are." Detective Harris smiled grimly. "Ma'am, by the time we're done, their names will be synonymous with betrayal in this state." She had no idea how right she was. But that came later. First, there were surgeries and physical therapy and the special kind of pain that comes from bones knitting back together. First, there were lawyers and depositions and the slow grinding of justice. First, there was the moment Damien walked into my hospital room 3 days after the accident, his face arranged in perfect grief, and I had to pretend I didn't know. "Mom," he said, and his voice broke beautifully. He'd always been a good actor. "Thank God you're alive. When you didn't come home, we were so worried. What happened out there?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing behind those blue eyes. Just mirrors reflecting back what I wanted to see. No soul, no remorse, just calculation. "We fell," I said simply. "Both of you? At the same time? Strange, isn't it?" I let the words hang there, watching for his reaction. He barely flinched. "Did you see what caused it? Loose rock? An animal?" The detective had coached me. "Don't let him know we suspect. Don't give him a chance to run." So I played the confused old woman he thought I was. "I can't remember much. It's all fuzzy." Relief flickered across his face, gone so fast I might have imagined it. But I knew. I'd spent 60 years reading people, and my son was an open book written in poison ink. "The important thing is you're going to be okay," he said, taking my hand. His touch felt like ice. "Both of you. We'll take care of everything while you recover. The house, the bills. whatever you need. Translation. We'll take care of accessing your accounts and finishing what we started. That's so sweet of you, honey, I said, squeezing his fingers with just enough force to remind him I was still strong. Still here. Still a problem he hadn't solved. After he left, I threw up into the bedside pan. Not from pain. From the pure horror of realizing I'd raised this thing. This beautiful, charming, soulless thing that wore my son's face. Henry came in then, wheeling himself in a chair. We sat in silence for a long moment, two broken people in a broken world. When I was protecting him, he said finally. After Ricardo. I told myself I was being a good father, that everyone deserves a second chance, that he was young and made a mistake and could change. And now? Now I know the truth. I wasn't protecting Damien. I was protecting myself from admitting I'd failed as a father, that something went wrong, and I didn't fix it, that I chose the wrong son. I wanted to forgive him, wanted to say it was okay, we'd all made mistakes. But Ricardo's face kept appearing in my mind. Sweet, gentle Ricardo who'd never hurt anything, who'd wanted to heal animals. And I couldn't find the words. But I could find revenge. The full truth came in pieces, like shards of glass cutting deeper each time. Detective Harris returned to my hospital room on the fourth day with her laptop and a pair of headphones. Mrs. Thompson, I need you to listen to the complete recording, not just the part after the fall, the part before. My hands trembled as I put on the headphones. Henry had already heard it. His face told me that much. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. His skin the color of old newspaper. The recording started with the sound of wind and our breathing as we hiked. Henry was humming something, maybe an old Beatles song. I heard my own voice. This view never gets old, does it? Then Melissa's voice, saccharine sweet. Gloria. Henry, why don't you stand right there by the edge? I want to get a photo with the sunset behind you. My stomach clenched. I remembered that moment. Remembered turning to smile at the camera. Remembered how Damien had positioned himself behind us, supposedly to help with the lighting. Actually, Damien's voice said on the recording, and I could hear something in his tone now that I'd missed then. Eagerness. Anticipation. Why don't you both look out at the canyon? Make it more dramatic. We turned our backs to them. God help us. We turned our backs. What came next was maybe 5 seconds of shuffling, heavy breathing, and then Melissa's whisper, barely audible. Now, baby. Do it now. While the trail's empty. The impact. Our screams. The sickening sound of bodies hitting rock. I ripped the headphones off and vomited into the basin beside my bed. It wasn't an impulse. It wasn't a moment of rage or desperation. They had planned it, discussed it, chosen that exact spot, that exact moment, that exact method. The photo was a setup. The positioning was deliberate. The empty trail was calculated. There's more, Detective Harris said quietly. She fast-forwarded to the part after they thought we were dead, to the conversation we'd heard from the ledge. But this time, with better audio equipment, every word was crystal clear. Damien. Okay, so here's what we do. We drive back to Denver, go to Starbucks on Colfax around 8 p.m. so the cameras catch us. That gives us an alibi. Then tomorrow morning, we realize they didn't come home and call the police. Worried son routine. Melissa. What if they find the bodies too fast? Damien. They won't. This section of Red Rock isn't popular. Could be weeks. And even if they do, 2 elderly people, known to hike alone, history of high blood pressure and arthritis. Accidental fall. Tragic, but not suspicious. Melissa. You're sure about the insurance? Damien. 350,000, babe. Plus whatever's in their accounts. My mom's been squirreling away teacher pension money for 40 years. Conservative estimate, 500,000 total. Maybe more. The sound of a kiss. Melissa. Enough to pay off Vincent's people and still have plenty left over. Damien. Enough to start over. New city, new life. No more looking over our shoulders. No more pretending to give a shit about my parents' boring stories and their boring house and their boring, pathetic lives. My hands were shaking so violently I couldn't control them. The nurse had to hold the basin while I dry heaved, my broken body convulsing with rage and grief and something darker. Something that tasted like copper and felt like ice in my veins. Vincent's people, Detective Harris said, pulling up files on her laptop. That's Vincent Carrera. Runs a gambling operation out of Colorado Springs. Very dangerous man. Your son owes him $43,000 as of last week. We've been building a case against Carrera for 2 years, but he's careful. Never gets his hands dirty. She showed me photos. Damien entering a warehouse in Colorado Springs. Damien with men in expensive suits. Damien looking over his shoulder with the paranoid energy of someone who knew he was in too deep. The gambling started about 3 years ago, Detective Harris continued. Small bets at first. Poker games, sports betting. Then he discovered high-stakes blackjack at an underground casino. He's good at it. Good enough to win big sometimes. But the house always wins eventually. 3 years, I repeated. The timeline was clicking into place like a lock opening. That's when he started asking us for money. Henry spoke up from his wheelchair, his voice hollow. $20,000 in the first year. He said it was for a business opportunity. Some tech startup that needed investors. $35,000 the second year, I added. The numbers I tracked so carefully now burning in my memory. He said his car broke down. Then his apartment needed repairs. Then Melissa lost her job. And this year? Detective Harris asked. $52,000, Henry said. We gave him $52,000 this year alone. The last payment was in September. $20,000, supposedly for medical bills after Melissa's emergency surgery. Detective Harris pulled up medical records. Melissa Thompson had no surgeries this year. No hospital admissions at all. $20,000. Tech startup that didn't exist. 2022. $35,000. Emergencies that never happened. 2023. $52,000. Medical bills and the lies. 2024. $107,000 given to my son over 3 years. $107,000 that went directly to gambling debts. $143,000. Total, he still owed $250,000. They thought I had every single dollar I'd given him had been a down payment on my own murder. There's something else, Detective Harris said, and I wanted to scream that there couldn't possibly be more, that I couldn't take one more revelation. But she opened another file. We executed a search warrant on your son's apartment yesterday. Found this in his laptop. It was a spreadsheet. A detailed, color-coded, meticulously organized spreadsheet titled Estate Plan. My hands found the laptop mouse, scrolling through my son's calculations. Life insurance. Payout. $350,000 mom's savings. Estimated. $180,000. Dad's 401k. $85,000. House sale. Conservative. $425,000. Personal items, jewelry. $15,000. Total inheritance. $1,055,000. Current debts. Vincent Carrera. $143,000. Credit cards. $28,000. Car loan. $19,000. Total debts. $190,000 net profit. $865,000. He'd even included notes in the margins. Wait 6 months before selling house to avoid suspicion. Donate some furniture to charity for tax write-off and good publicity. Consider keeping mom's jewelry if it's worth appraising. My son had calculated my death down to the tax benefits. He was wrong about one thing, I said, my voice coming from somewhere far away. I don't have $180,000 in savings. Detective Harris looked up, alert. I have $247,000, I continued. Plus, Henry's 401k is worth $92,000, not $85,000. And our house is worth at least $45,000 in the current market. He undervalued us by almost $60,000. I started laughing. It was a horrible sound, broken and sharp. He tried to kill us for money, and he didn't even do his research properly. What kind of murderer doesn't check his numbers? Henry was crying again, silent tears running down his face. Gloria, don't, I said, cutting him off. Don't say anything. Not yet. Detective Harris closed her laptop. Mrs. Thompson, there's one more thing you need to hear. We've been monitoring Damien's phone since yesterday. He doesn't know we have a warrant. This call came in this morning. She pressed play on her phone. Damien's voice. She doesn't remember anything. I visited her yesterday. Played the concerned son perfectly. She bought it completely. A man's voice I didn't recognize. You sure? Damien. She's 60 years old with a head injury. Even if she does start remembering, who's going to believe her? It'll sound like confused old lady rambling. The other voice. And the old man? Damien. Concussion, broken ribs. He's even worse off than she is. Besides, I'm their only family. Whatever they say, I control the narrative. Tragic accident. Devoted son devastated by nearly losing his parents. If I play this right, I might even get some sympathy donations. The other voice laughed. Cold man. Even for you. Damien. Hey, they've had their turn. 42 years of boring marriage, 2 kids, white picket fence bullshit. They've lived their lives. It's my turn now. And I'm not spending it poor. The call ended. The hospital room was absolutely silent except for the beep of monitors and the distant sound of a TV from another room. I felt something inside me that I'd never felt before. Not when Ricardo died. Not even when Damien pushed us off that cliff. This was different. This was the moment when love died and something else was born in its place. He called us boring, I said softly. He murdered his brother, stole from us for 3 years, threw us off a cliff, and his biggest criticism is that we're boring. Gloria, Henry tried again. No. I turned to Detective Harris. What happens now? Now, she said, meeting my eyes with something like respect. We build an ironclad case. The recording is powerful, but defense attorneys are good at explaining things away. We need more. We need his financial records, testimony from Vincent Carrera's associates, proof of the insurance fraud, evidence linking him to Ricardo's death 30 years ago. How long will that take? With your cooperation? Maybe 6 weeks. We need to move carefully. If Damien suspects we know, he'll run, I finished. Or worse, try again. Detective Harris nodded. Which is why you're going to be moved to a safe location as soon as you're medically cleared. Both of you. Official story is, you're being transferred to a rehabilitation facility in Colorado Springs. Real story is, you'll be in a secure location with 24-hour police protection. And Damien? We let him think he got away with it. Let him visit you. Play the devoted son. Dig himself deeper. Every visit. Every call. Every text. We'll be recording all of it. By the time we arrest him, he'll have handed us enough rope to hang himself 100 times over. I looked at Henry, my husband of 42 years who'd hidden our son's first murder and was paying for it now, who'd loved wrong and chosen wrong and failed both our sons in different ways, but who'd also just spent 4 hours on a frozen ledge keeping me alive, who'd never stopped fighting even when his body was broken. Okay, I said, let's destroy him. Detective Harris smiled. And it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd seen too many bad people go free and was glad to finally have an easy win. Mrs. Thompson, I've been doing this job for 18 years. I've never had a case with this much evidence. Your son recorded his own confession. He's going to prison, and he's going to stay there until he's an old man. Good, I said. I want him to know what it feels like to be trapped, to have years and years stretching ahead with no escape, to understand that consequences are real. There's one thing I need to know, Detective Harris said carefully. Are you prepared for what comes next? The media attention, the trial, having every detail of your family aired in public. The questions about how you didn't know your son was capable of this? I thought about that. About being the teacher whose own child was a murderer. About the whispers and the judgment and the inevitable question, what kind of mother raises a monster? Detective Harris, I said, I spent 40 years teaching other people's children. I loved my job, but I was blind to my own son's darkness because I didn't want to see it. That's on me. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. But I won't let shame stop me from getting justice for Ricardo, or from making sure Damien never hurts anyone else. She nodded slowly. Okay then, let's get started. They moved us on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after the fall. The ambulance that pulled up to Denver Health Medical Center had Mountain View Rehabilitation Center. Painted on the side. Very official. Very convincing. Damien stood in the parking lot watching as paramedics loaded us inside. His face arranged in appropriate concern. He even waved as we pulled away. What he didn't know was that the ambulance turned left instead of right at the first intersection. Didn't go to Colorado Springs at all. Instead, we ended up at a safe house in Lakewood, a nondescript ranch-style home with reinforced doors and 2 plainclothes officers rotating shifts outside. Detective Harris had thought of everything. She'd even arranged for a hospital bed for me and physical therapy equipment for both of us. You're going to be here for a while, she said as they wheeled me inside. Might as well actually recover. The house had 3 bedrooms, outdated floral wallpaper, and the kind of furniture that looked like it came from a government auction. But it also had something precious. Privacy, safety, and in the dining room, converted into a makeshift command center, everything we needed to destroy my son. Let's start with timeline reconstruction, Detective Harris said that first afternoon, spreading papers across the table. Her partner, Detective James Wu, a quiet man in his 50s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, set up a laptop and projector. We have the recording from the fall, Detective Wu began, pulling up an audio waveform on the screen. But we need to establish premeditation. We need to prove this wasn't a spontaneous act, but a planned execution. Over the next 3 days, they interviewed us for hours. Every detail, every moment, every interaction with Damien over the past year. I sat in my wheelchair with my leg elevated, reliving the slow poison of his betrayal. January, I said, walking them through my memories. That's when it started getting weird. Damien called, asking about our wills. Said he and Melissa were updating theirs and it made him think about family planning. Detective Harris made notes. What specifically did he ask? Who our beneficiaries were, whether we had life insurance. What would happen to the house? At the time, I thought he was being responsible. Mature. Now you know he was doing reconnaissance. Detective Wu finished. Henry added more pieces. February. He asked if we'd updated our beneficiary forms on my 401k. Said his financial advisor told him most people forget to update those things. I thought it was helpful advice. March, I continued, and my voice started shaking. He brought up Ricardo for the first time in years. Asked if we ever hiked Red Rock Canyon anymore. Said he wanted to do a memorial hike for his brother's birthday. I thought it was beautiful, that he was finally processing his grief. The detectives exchanged glances. That's when he started planning the location, Detective Harris said. April, Henry said. That's when he suggested we all go together. Make it a family thing. But then he kept rescheduling. Too busy with work, he said. Melissa wasn't feeling well. His car needed repairs. At least 5 times he suggested a date and then cancelled. He was waiting for the right conditions, Detective Wu said. Testing different scenarios. Checking weather patterns. Looking for a weekend when the trails would be relatively empty. I felt sick all over again. He spent 7 months planning our murder. 8, actually, Detective Harris corrected, pulling up more documents. Look at this. It was a web search history from Damien's laptop, recovered during the warrant execution. The dates made my blood freeze. December 20. How long does it take to die from fall trauma? December 23. Red Rock Canyon secluded trails. January 2024. Life insurance, payout timeline, Colorado. January 24. How to contest a will. February 24. Elderly hiking accidents statistics. March 24. Red Rock Canyon rescue response time. April 24. How long before body found wilderness. May 24. Cameras, Red Rock Canyon trails. June 24. Cell phone coverage, Red Rock. August 24. Weather patterns, Colorado, November. October 24. Best time visit, Red Rock Canyon, low crowds. He researched it like a term paper, I whispered. Methodical, thorough. He even checked for cameras. And that's not all, Detective Wu said, opening another file. We pulled his credit card records. Look at what he bought in September. The list made my stomach turn. GoPro camera, returned after 1 week. Climbing rope, returned after 3 days. Large hiking backpack, returned after 1 week. Portable battery pack, kept. Two-way radios, returned. He was testing methods, Detective Harris explained. The GoPro, probably thought about filming it as an accident, but realized that could backfire. The rope may be considered staging it as a climbing fall. The radios, possibly to coordinate with Melissa. He kept trying different approaches until he landed on the simplest one. Push them when no one's looking. I thought I'd cried all my tears on that ledge. I was wrong. New ones came now, hot and bitter. How did I not see this? I asked no one in particular. I'm a teacher. I spent 40 years reading children, understanding behavior, spotting warning signs. How did I miss my own son turning into a monster? Henry reached for my hand. Because he didn't turn into anything, Gloria. He already was. We just didn't want to believe it. On day 4, Detective Harris brought us the first real bombshell. She walked into the safe house at 9 a.m. with a manila folder and an expression I'd learned to recognize. The look that said everything was about to get worse. I need you to sit down for this, she said. I was already sitting. My wheelchair saw to that. But something in her tone made me grip the armrests. We've been digging into Ricardo's death, she began. The original case file from 1994. There wasn't much investigation. It was ruled an accidental fall within 48 hours. But there was one detail that stuck out to me. She opened the folder, showing us a faded police report. The ranger who found Ricardo's body noted something unusual. The position of the body suggested he'd landed face first, but there were bruises on his upper back consistent with being struck or pushed. The medical examiner noted it too, but dismissed it as injuries sustained during the fall. My throat closed up. But they weren't. No, Detective Harris said quietly. They were Damien's handprints. We compared the bruise measurements from the autopsy photos to Damien's current hand size, accounting for 30 years of growth. It's a match within the margin of error. Henry made a sound like he was being strangled. I told you I saw him push Ricardo, but no one would listen. I was his father, they said. I was traumatized. I was seeing things that weren't there. Someone did listen, Detective Wu said, entering behind Detective Harris. He held up another document. Dr. Patricia Chen, the medical examiner who performed Ricardo's autopsy. She filed a supplementary report expressing concerns about the bruising pattern. She recommended further investigation. What happened to that recommendation? I asked. It was buried, Detective Wu said flatly, by Sheriff Robert Dunmore. He was the Jefferson County Sheriff at the time, closed the case personally, marked it accidental, shut down all further inquiry. Why would he do that? I asked. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew. I knew before Detective Harris pulled out the next piece of paper. Because Sheriff Dunmore's daughter, Christine, was dating Damien at the time, she said. They were both 15. Young love, according to everyone we interviewed. The sheriff didn't want his daughter's boyfriend under suspicion for murder. So he made sure the case went away. The room tilted. Where is this sheriff now? Retired in 2018, living in Arizona. We've already contacted him. He's agreed to give a deposition. Says he's carried the guilt for 30 years and wants to come clean. This was it. This was Bomba 1. The moment when we learned that Ricardo's murder hadn't just been covered up by family. It had been covered up by the law itself. My beautiful firstborn had died, and a corrupt sheriff had let his killer walk free because of teenage romance. There's more, Detective Harris said. And I wanted to scream that there couldn't possibly be more, that the human heart could only take so much before it simply stopped. But she was already pulling out more documents. We tracked down Christine Dunmore. She's Christine Patel now, married, 2 kids, living in Seattle. She was reluctant to talk at first, but when we told her what Damien had done to you, she broke down. Said she'd been carrying a secret for 30 years and couldn't hold it anymore. She pressed play on a recording. A woman's voice, shaky with emotion. Damien told me he killed Ricardo. Not right away. About 6 months after it happened. We were at a party he'd been drinking and he just said it. Like it was funny. He said Ricardo was weak and whiny and always getting more attention, so he fixed the problem. I thought he was joking or trying to be edgy. But his eyes, when he said it, there was nothing there. No guilt, no remorse, just emptiness. I broke up with him the next week. My dad asked why, and I told him what Damien said. Dad told me it was drunk talk, impossible, that I should forget about it. But I never did. I'm so sorry. I should have spoken up. Maybe if I had, Ricardo would be the only one. The recording cut off. I sat in my wheelchair, my broken leg throbbing, my broken heart screaming. My son had bragged about murdering his brother, had laughed about it at a party. And a sheriff's daughter had known, and a sheriff had buried it, and Ricardo had stayed dead and unavenged for 30 years. We're reopening the Ricardo Thompson case as a homicide, Detective Harris said. With Christine's testimony, the Emmy's original concerns, Sheriff Dunmore's admission of obstruction, and Henry's eyewitness account, we have enough to charge Damien with his brother's murder. How long would he get? I asked. My voice sounded hollow, distant. For Ricardo alone, 25 to life. For the attempted murder of you and Henry, another 25 to life. For the insurance fraud Melissa committed, 10 to 15. And if we can connect him to Vincent Carrera's organization as an active participant rather than just a debtor, we're looking at federal RICO charges. She paused, letting that sink in. Your son is going to prison for the rest of his natural life. Good, I thought. Good. On day 7, they brought in a financial forensics expert. Her name was Rebecca Zhao, a woman in her early 30s with bright red glasses and the focused energy of someone who loved spreadsheets more than people. Mrs. Thompson, she said, spreading documents across the dining room table, your son is a very stupid criminal. Despite everything, I almost laughed. How so? He kept records of everything, and I mean everything. Most criminals try to hide their tracks. Your son documented his in detailed Excel files, apparently thinking no one would ever look. She pulled up his laptop files on the projector. This is his parent management spreadsheet. Yes, that's really what he called it. It tracks every dollar he got from you over the last 3 years, every lie he told to get it, and his confidence rating on whether you believed him. The spreadsheet was color-coded, green for fully believed, yellow for suspicious but gave money anyway, red for almost caught, abort. There were 47 entries in green. 500. Car repair. Lie. Transmission. Confidence. 95% 2000. Security deposit. Lie. Moving. Confidence. 90%. 5000. Medical bill. Lie. ER visit. Confidence. 100%. 3500. Laptop for work. Lie. Old one crashed. Confidence. 85% on and on it went. Each lie rated like a performance review. Each successful manipulation celebrated with little comments. Dad totally bought it. Mom cried and gave extra 200. Easy mark. He'd called us easy marks. Rebecca continued, pulling up another file. This is his estate liquidation plan, created in July 20th, updated most recently on October 28th, 3 days before he pushed you off the cliff. The document was 12 pages long. It detailed everything. Which furniture to keep, which to sell, which charity to donate to for tax purposes. How to handle the house sale to maximize profit. Which of our belongings had resale value. He'd even researched estate sale companies and gotten quotes. On page 7, there was a section titled Sentimental Items. Mom. My hands shook as Rebecca read it aloud. Mom's wedding ring. Sell. Appraisal $3,500. Mom's pearl necklace. Sell. Appraisal $1,200. Mom's photo albums. Trash. No value. Mom's teaching awards. Trash. No value. Mom's recipe box. Keep? Melissa wants it. He'd assigned dollar values to my life and decided my memories were trash. There's more, Rebecca said, and I wasn't sure I could take more, but she was already showing us the next document. This is the insurance claim he'd already drafted, ready to file the moment your deaths were confirmed. It was a 2-page letter to Mountain States Insurance, Melissa's employer. Dear Claims Department, it is with the deepest sorrow that I report the accidental deaths of my parents, Gloria Thompson and Henry Thompson, who fell from a hiking trail at Red Rock Canyon on November 4, 2020. As their only surviving child and the listed beneficiary on policy number MS 88473992, I am filing this claim for the death benefit of $350,000. My parents were experienced hikers who knew the trails well, but age and balance issues sadly contributed to this tragedy. I am devastated beyond words. The letter went on for another page and a half, dripping with false grief and carefully worded to emphasize the accidental nature of our deaths. He wrote this 3 days before he pushed you, Rebecca said. It was saved on his laptop with the date stamp. He had it ready to go. Bomba 2. The sheer premeditation of it. The cold, calculated certainty that we would die and he would profit. The grief, already prepared like a costume to wear. Henry spoke up, his voice rough. What about Melissa? What's her level of involvement? Rebecca pulled up more files. Oh, she's in this up to her neck. Look at her work computer. We got a warrant for that too, since she committed insurance fraud on company equipment. New documents appeared on the screen. Emails between Melissa and Damien sent from her work account. From Melissa to Damien, August 15th. Babe, I ran the numbers again. Your parents have way more than you thought. I accessed their insurance and financial records. Don't worry, no, I covered my tracks. Total available if they both die. Over $1 million. We could pay Vincent, pay off everything, and still have $600K to start fresh. Maybe Vegas? New identities? Think about it. From Damien to Melissa, August 16th. Okay, I'm thinking about it. How would we even do it without getting caught? From Melissa to Damien, August 18th. Accident. Hiking accident. Your family has history of that already. No one would question it. From Damien to Melissa, August 20th. You're brilliant, seriously. I knew I kept you around for more than just your looks. From Melissa to Damien. August 22nd. Just promise me one thing. Make it quick. I know they're annoying, but I don't want them to suffer. From Damien to Melissa, August 22nd. They won't feel a thing. Promise. He'd lied to her too. We'd suffered for 4 hours on that ledge. We'd felt everything. There are 47 emails between them, Rebecca said. Planning, discussing, refining the plan. Melissa researched hiking trails, weather patterns, and even looked up how to fake grief convincingly on her work computer. She's not an accessory. She's a full co-conspirator. Detective Wu added, "We've also traced 8,000 in payments from Melissa to a private investigator named Derek Torres. She hired him to follow you for 3 weeks in September and October. He documented your routines, your hiking habits, when you went to the bank, everything." "She had us surveilled?" I asked, incredulous. "For 3 weeks. Torres kept detailed reports. He's already agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. Says he thought it was a divorce case, didn't know it was murder conspiracy." Another file appeared. Torres's surveillance logs, 9:15, subjects leave house, 8:45 a.m., grocery shopping. King Supers, 9:16, subjects visit bank, stayed 23 minutes. Left with briefcase, 9:17, subjects hike, Lookout Mountain, returned 2:15 p.m., 9:22, subjects attend church, social hour and after, home, by 1 p.m., 9:28, subjects hike, Red Rock Canyon, trail 3, duration 2.5 hours. On and on. Every movement tracked, every pattern noted. They'd been hunting us like animals, studying our habits, looking for the perfect moment to strike. October 31st, Detective Harris said, pointing to the last entry. "Torres noted that you'd mentioned wanting to do one more hike before winter weather set in. That Red Rock Canyon was your favorite. He reported this to Melissa. 4 days later, Damien called you to suggest the memorial hike for Ricardo." "He used Ricardo's memory," Henry said, his voice breaking. "He used his dead brother as bait to lure us to our deaths." "Yes," Detective Harris said simply. We sat in silence. The weight of it, the planning, the surveillance, the spreadsheets, the emails, the sheer calculated evil of it all, pressed down like a physical force. But Detective Harris wasn't done. She had one more bomb to drop. "There's something else," she said, pulling out a final folder. "This is the one that's going to destroy them in court. Bomba 3. She opened the folder, revealing photographs. Crime scene photos from inside Damien and Melissa's apartment. "We found these hidden in the back of their bedroom closet," she said, "behind a false panel that our team almost missed." The first photo showed a box. Inside the box were items that made my heart stop. Ricardo's high school ring. Ricardo's wallet, still containing his driver's license. Ricardo's watch, the one Henry had given him for his 16th birthday. "These were personal effects returned to you after Ricardo's death in Nape 4, Detective Harris said quietly. "You reported them lost in a move in 1998. But they weren't lost. Damien took them. He kept them as trophies." Henry made a sound like an animal in pain. But there was more. Under Ricardo's belongings, there was a small notebook. Detective Harris opened it carefully, showing us pages of handwriting. Damien's handwriting. Entries dating back years. November 12, 94. "Got away with it. Everyone thinks it was an accident. Ricardo's stuff is mine now. He doesn't need it where he is." March 3rd, 2003. Saw Mom cry about Ricardo today. Still. 9 years later. She loved him more. I was always second best. Good thing he's not around anymore. June 18th, 2010. 21 years since I pushed Ricardo. Sometimes I think about telling Mom just to see her face, but that would ruin everything. Patience. August 30th, 24. Decided. Going to do it. They've lived long enough. Ricardo taught me that getting away with it is easy if you're smart. And I'm smart. October 15th, 2024. 3 weeks until the hike. Melissa is nervous but excited. She doesn't know about Ricardo. Doesn't know this is the second time. That's better. She'd probably freak out. Some secrets you keep. The last entry was dated November 3rd, 20, the day before he pushed us. Tomorrow is the day. Everything is ready. Check the weather. Perfect. Trail will be empty. Phone charged for alibis. Story straight. Mom and Dad don't suspect a thing. They actually thanked me for suggesting the memorial hike. They said it was healing to honor Ricardo's memory. If only they knew. Tomorrow they'll join him. Full circle. Poetic, really. The brother I killed and the parents who loved him more. All together again. And I'll finally have what I deserve. He'd never felt remorse. Not for 1 second in 30 years. He'd kept Ricardo's belongings as trophies and planned our murder as revenge for loving our dead son more than our living one. This notebook, Detective Harris said, combined with everything else. The recordings, the emails, the surveillance, the financial records, Christine's testimony, Sheriff Dunmore's admission. This is the most ironclad double murder case I've seen in my career. When do you arrest them? I asked. My voice sounded calm, but inside I was screaming. Soon, she said. But first, we need one more thing from you. What? We need you to see Damien one more time. Wear a wire. Let him talk. Let him think he's gotten away with it. We need him to commit perjury before we arrest him, because his lawyer will try to claim everything we have is circumstantial or misinterpreted. We need him to lie to you directly, on tape, knowing you're injured and vulnerable. We need to show the jury who he really is. I looked at Henry. He nodded slowly. Okay, I said. I'll do it. When? Tomorrow, Detective Harris said. We'll stage it at the safe house. Tell him you're being released from rehab, that you want to see him. He'll come. And when he does, we'll be ready. That night, I couldn't sleep. The physical therapist had gotten me walking short distances with a walker, and I paced the small safe house living room at 2 a.m., my legs screaming with each step, but my mind screaming louder. Tomorrow, I would see my son. Tomorrow, I would look into the eyes of the man who'd murdered my firstborn and tried to murder me. Tomorrow, I would have to pretend I didn't know. Tomorrow, I would have to be the confused, injured mother he expected. And the day after tomorrow, they would arrest him. Henry found me in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at old photos on my phone. Ricardo at his 8th grade graduation. Ricardo holding his acceptance letter to Colorado State. Ricardo the day before he died, smiling at the camera with his whole future ahead of him. I failed him, Henry said quietly. I saw what Damien did, and I said nothing. I let Ricardo's murderer sleep under our roof, eat at our table. I protected the killer because he was my son. We both failed him, I said, you by staying silent, me by being blind. But tomorrow, we stop failing. Tomorrow, we speak for Ricardo, and for every other person Damien might have hurt if we don't stop him now. Gloria, Henry said, taking my hand. After this is over, after the trial, after everything, I don't expect you to stay with me. I know what I did is unforgivable. 42 years of marriage, and I lied to you every single day about the most important thing. I understand if... Stop, I said. Just stop. I can't think about us right now. I can only think about tomorrow, one thing at a time. He nodded, squeezing my hand once before letting go. At 4 a.m., I finally slept. And I dreamed of Ricardo, alive and laughing, running through our old backyard. In the dream, he turned to me and said, "It's okay, Mom. You're going to make it right." When I woke up, I believed him. Detective Harris arrived at 8 a.m. with a technical team to wire the safe house. Tiny cameras in the smoke detectors, microphones hidden in the floral centerpiece, a wire taped to my chest under my loose sweater. "Remember," she coached me as they prepared. "Don't ask leading questions. Don't accuse him. Just be mom. Be confused, hurt, scared. Let him talk. Narcissists can't help themselves. They always reveal more than they should when they think they're in control. At 10 a.m., we called Damien. Detective Harris had scripted it carefully. "Damien?" I said when he answered, making my voice weak and trembling. "Honey, it's Mom." "Mom!" His voice flooded with false relief. "Oh my God, I've been so worried. They wouldn't let me visit at the rehab center. How are you? How's Dad?" We're okay. Healing. They're releasing us today, moving us to outpatient care. I paused, like I was struggling with emotion. Detective Harris gave me a thumbs up. "I wanted to see you, to thank you for being there for us. Can you come by? I'm at a temporary place until we can go home." "Of course," he said immediately. "Just text me the address. I'll be there in an hour." "Come alone," I said, following the script. "I don't think I can handle too many people right now. My head still isn't quite right." "Whatever you need, Mom. I love you." "I love you too," I said. And the light tasted like poison. He arrived at 11:15 a.m. in his silver Honda Civic, the one I'd co-signed for 3 years ago. I watched through the window as he sat in the car for a full minute, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting his expression, practicing his concerned son face. Then he got out, grabbed a bouquet of grocery store flowers from the passenger seat, and walked to the door. Henry and I sat in the living room, arranged carefully. Me in my wheelchair, leg elevated. Henry on the couch with visible bruising still on his face. 2 elderly people, broken and vulnerable. Easy marks. Damien knocked softly. "Mom? Dad?" "Come in, honey," I called. "It's unlocked." He entered, and his performance was Oscar-worthy. His face crumpled when he saw us. He rushed over, kneeling beside my wheelchair, taking my hand. "Oh, Mom, you look so much better than I feared. I was so scared I'd lost you." Up close, I could see his eyes, could see the nothing behind them. How had I never noticed before? "Tell me what happened," he said, settling into the armchair across from us. "I need to understand. How did you both fall at the same time?" This was it, the moment we'd been waiting for. I glanced at Henry, who gave a slight nod. "I don't remember much," I said, touching my head gingerly. "It's all fuzzy, but I keep having these dreams, these strange dreams where I hear your voice, and Melissa's, like you were there on the trail." I watched his face carefully, not even a flicker. "That's probably the head trauma, Mom," he said gently. Memory gets confused after something like that. Your brain is trying to make sense of what happened, so it fills in details that aren't real. "The doctor said the same thing," I agreed. "But these dreams feel so vivid. In them, I hear Melissa say something about money, about insurance. Isn't that strange?" "Very strange," Damien said, his voice smooth as silk. "Melissa wasn't even there that day. She was at work. I was at the gym. Remember I told you we couldn't make the hike because Melissa had to work?" Lie number 1. On tape. With him knowing I was confused and vulnerable. "You're right," I said, playing confused. "I'm sorry, my memory is just so scattered. The doctor says it might take months to fully come back." "That's okay, Mom," he said, patting my hand. "You don't need to remember. What matters is you're alive. You and Dad both." "The strangest thing," Henry spoke up, his voice weak, "is that I thought I heard your voice too, right before we fell. Maybe we're both having the same trauma-induced false memories." Damien laughed, but there was an edge to it. "That would be wild, like shared psychosis or something. But no, I was definitely at 24-hour fitness on Colfax. I can show you my check-in on the app if you want." Lie number 2. The gym had already confirmed he wasn't there that day. No, of course," Henry said. "I believe you, it's just so confusing. Everything from that day's jumbled." Actually, I said carefully, there's something I wanted to ask you about. The police detective, Detective Harris, she mentioned something about us having life insurance. I don't remember taking out any policy. Do you know anything about that? Damien's smile didn't waver, but his pupils dilated slightly. Life insurance? No, I don't think so. Maybe she has you confused with someone else. Lie number 3. He knew exactly about the policy Melissa had forged. That's what I thought, I said, although I paused, pretending to struggle with memory. Didn't Melissa work for an insurance company? Maybe she mentioned something once? She processes claims, Mom. She sees hundreds of policies. She wouldn't specifically remember yours. His voice was still calm, but his left leg had started bouncing. A tell. You're probably right, I said. I'm sorry, honey. My brain is just all over the place. The important thing is that we're okay. That we survived. That you survived, Damien agreed. That's all that matters. But the way he said survived, there was something bitter underneath, like he hadn't wanted us to survive, like our being alive was a problem he was trying to figure out how to solve. Have you been to the house? I asked, changing tactics. Is everything okay there? Oh yeah, it's fine. I've been checking on it every few days. Bringing in your mail. That kind of thing. That's so thoughtful, I said. We really don't deserve you. Something flickered in his eyes then. Something ugly. You're my parents. Of course I'm going to take care of you. But his tone said, you're my obligation, my burden, my meal ticket. We talked for another 30 minutes. Every question we asked, he had smooth answers. Every lie came easily. Every performance beat was perfect. He asked about our recovery timeline, about when we'd come home, about whether we'd need home health care. He was calculating, wondering if there would be another opportunity, another accident that couldn't be survived. Finally, he stood to leave. I should let you rest. You both look exhausted. He hugged me carefully, mindful of my injuries. His cologne was the same one I'd bought him, the one I'd smelled right before he pushed me off a cliff. I love you, Mom, he said into my hair. I love you too, I whispered back. At the door, he turned back. Oh, one more thing. That detective you mentioned, Detective Harris. What exactly did she talk to you about? Just the accident, I said. Standard questions about what we remembered. Why? No reason, he said quickly. Just making sure she wasn't bothering you with unnecessary stuff while you're recovering. He was worried. Good. After he left, I sat in my wheelchair shaking. Not from fear, from rage, from the absolute certainty that if we hadn't gathered all this evidence, if we hadn't wired the house, if Detective Harris wasn't already working with the district attorney, Damien would try again. He would finish what he started. Detective Harris emerged from the back bedroom where she'd been monitoring everything. Perfect, she said. Multiple false statements on tape. We've got him. When? I asked. She checked her watch. The arrest warrant is already signed. SWAT team is en route to his apartment right now. We'll have him in custody within the hour. I looked at Henry. 42 years of marriage. 2 sons, one murdered by the other. A lifetime of mistakes and love and failure. Tomorrow, we'd face the cameras. Tomorrow, the world would know our shame. Tomorrow, our family's darkest secrets would become public entertainment. But today, justice would finally find Damien. I want to be there when you arrest him, I said. Detective Harris shook her head. That's not... I want to be there, I repeated, my voice steel. He's seen me broken and bleeding and begging for my life. He's seen me confused and vulnerable and weak. I want him to see me one more time before they put him in handcuffs. I want him to know that his boring, pathetic mother destroyed him. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, let's go. They put me in an unmarked van with tinted windows, my wheelchair locked in place facing a small monitor showing the SWAT team's body camera feeds. Detective Harris sat beside me, her hand resting on her service weapon. Henry was in the hospital. His doctor had forbidden him from leaving after his blood pressure spiked during Damien's visit. ETA 3 minutes, the driver called back. I watched the screen as the tactical team assembled outside Damien and Melissa's apartment building on East 17th Avenue. A nice building. Modern, expensive. Paid for with money they'd bled from us over 3 years. All units in position, a voice crackled over the radio. My hands gripped the armrests of my wheelchair. This was it. The moment 30 years in the making. Justice for Ricardo. Justice for us. Justice delayed, but finally arriving. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The apartment door exploded inward. Police, search warrant. Hands where we can see them. The body cameras showed chaos. SWAT officers flooding through the door, weapons drawn. Melissa screaming from the bedroom. And there, in the living room, Damien standing frozen with a beer in one hand and his phone in the other. On the phone screen, visible in the body camera footage, was a flight booking website. One-way tickets to Mexico City. Departing tomorrow. He'd been planning to run. Damien Thompson. You're under arrest for the attempted murder of Gloria and Henry Thompson, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and the murder of Ricardo Thompson. Detective Harris's voice came through the speakers, calm and official. She'd gone in with the team. I watched his face on the screen. Watched the moment he understood his perfect plan had failed. Watched 30 years of getting away with murder crumble in an instant. I want a lawyer, he said. His first words. Not, there's been a mistake. Not, I'm innocent. Just the words of someone who knew they were caught. You'll get one, Detective Harris said. Melissa Thompson, you're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and accessory to attempted murder. Melissa appeared on screen in pajamas, her face streaked with mascara. This is insane. We didn't do anything. Damien, tell them. But Damien wasn't looking at her. He was staring directly at the body camera, and somehow, I swear he knew I was watching. Where's my mother? He asked. Detective Harris smiled. Why don't you ask her yourself? She turned the camera and there I was on her phone screen, the video feed from the van showing me in my wheelchair, alive and watching everything. Hi, baby, I said softly into the camera Detective Harris held up. Surprise, Mommy's not as confused as you thought. His face went white, then red. Then something I'd never seen before. Pure, undiluted hatred. You bitch, he spit. You fucking bitch. After everything I did for you. After I visited you in the hospital. After you pushed me off a cliff, I finished. After you murdered your brother. After you spent 3 years stealing from us. Which part exactly should I be grateful for? An officer moved to restrain him as he lunged toward the camera. I should have made sure you were dead. I should have gone down there and finished it. And there's confession number 4, Detective Harris said calmly. Thanks for that. They cuffed him. Then they cuffed Melissa, who was now sobbing hysterically. As they led them out, Damien tried one more time to look at the camera to send me some message with his eyes. But all I saw was a stranger, a monster wearing my son's face. The van drove me to the Jefferson County Justice Center, where they were processing both arrests. I waited in a private room while they did the paperwork, the fingerprints, the photos. Through a one-way window, I watched Damien sit in an interrogation room, his expensive lawyer already beside him. Detective Wu entered my waiting room with coffee and a grim smile. His lawyer's already trying to deal, wants to plead to manslaughter, says the recordings are ambiguous, says we can't prove intent. Can you? I asked. Mrs. Thompson, we have 47 emails planning your murder. We have his notebook confessing to Ricardo's murder. We have him on tape today lying about the insurance policy he knew Melissa forged. We have his laptop search history showing 8 months of research. We have surveillance logs he paid for. And we have him on video just 20 minutes ago saying he should have made sure you were dead. He paused, sipping his coffee. His lawyers not trying to get him off. His lawyers trying to keep him from getting life without parole. Will he succeed? Not a chance. Through the window, I watched Damien argue with his lawyer, his face animated, his hands gesturing, still thinking he could talk his way out, still believing his charm would save him. It wouldn't. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks later. They held it at the Jefferson County Courthouse, a brick building that had seen 40 years of justice, including the day in night when Sheriff Dunmore had closed Ricardo's case without investigation. I wore my best dress, navy blue, conservative, the kind teachers wear to parent conferences. Henry sat beside me in his wheelchair, his ribs still taped. Behind us, the courtroom was packed. Media, curious onlookers, former students of mine who'd read about the case in the Denver Post. The headline had been devastating. Former teacher's son arrested for 30-year-old murder and attempted patricide. We'd become a story. The case of the Cliff Killer, they were calling it. Already there were podcast requests, documentary offers, a Dateline producer who wanted exclusive rights. Judge Patricia Mendoza entered, a severe woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for taking no nonsense. All rise. We rose, those of us who could. I stayed in my wheelchair, my broken leg still in a cast. Damien entered in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, flanked by 2 officers. He'd lost weight in 2 weeks. The jail food wasn't agreeing with him. Good. He saw me and something flickered across his face. Not remorse, not apology. Just calculation. Still trying to figure out an angle, a way to manipulate this situation. The prosecutor, District Attorney Jennifer Walsh, was a woman in her mid-40s with a reputation for never losing a murder case. She'd taken this one personally after reading Ricardo's case file. Your Honor, she began, the state is charging Damien Robert Thompson with first-degree murder in the death of Ricardo Thompson. 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder in the November 4th, 24 assault on Gloria and Henry Thompson, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and witness tampering. She laid out the evidence, piece by piece. The recording from the cliff, the emails, the notebook, the surveillance, the forged insurance policy. Christine Dunmore's testimony. Sheriff Dunmore's admission of obstruction. Damien's lawyer, Marcus Webb, tried to interject. Your Honor, much of this evidence is circumstantial or taken out of context. The so-called confession in the notebook could be creative writing. The emails could be dark jokes. The defendant was recorded saying he should have made sure they were dead. D.A. Walsh interrupted. That's not creative writing, Your Honor. That's admission of guilt. Judge Mendoza reviewed the evidence folders silently. 5 minutes passed. 10. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Webb, your client is recorded on multiple devices confessing to or discussing these crimes. He kept physical trophies from his first victim. He researched methods for months. He hired surveillance. His co-conspirator girlfriend forged insurance documents on company equipment. Unless you have a defense beyond, maybe he was joking, I suggest you save your arguments for trial. She banged her gavel. The defendant is remanded without bail. Trial date set for March 15th, 20. Given the severity of the charges and the defendant's clear flight risk, officers, please inform the court about the Mexico tickets. An officer spoke up. Your Honor, Mr. Thompson was in the process of booking one-way flights to Mexico City when we arrested him. Departure scheduled for the morning after his parents' visit, which we now know was conducted while wearing a wire. Judge Mendoza's eyes narrowed. So immediately after lying to his severely injured parents about his whereabouts on the day he tried to murder them, the defendant was planning to flee the country. Yes, remanded without bail is appropriate. This court is adjourned. The gavel banged again. Damien turned to look at me one final time as they led him out. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and I didn't look away. Didn't flinch. Didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Instead, I pulled out my phone slowly, deliberately. Opened my banking app. Turned the screen so he could see the balance. Account balance. 247,364.28. His eyes widened. He'd thought I was poor. Thought we had so little he needed to kill us for it. But I'd saved every penny of my teacher's salary for 40 years. Lived modestly. Invested carefully. And now he'd get nothing. You know what's funny, Damien? I called out, loud enough for the whole courtroom to hear. You killed your brother and tried to kill us for money we were going to leave you anyway. If you just waited, if you'd just been a decent human being, it would have all been yours eventually. But you couldn't wait. You couldn't be patient. You couldn't be good. Security moved to escort him out. But he was staring at my phone screen, at the number he'd underestimated, at the fortune he'd murdered for and would never touch. That money's going to Ricardo's memorial fund now, I continued. Every single dollar. We're establishing a scholarship at Colorado State for veterinary students. The Ricardo Thompson Memorial Scholarship for students who want to heal instead of hurt. Your brother's dream is going to live on, and your name is going to be forgotten. You can't do that, he shouted, straining against the officers. That's my inheritance. That's mine. You lost the right to call anything of mine yours when you put your hands on my back and pushed, I said, my voice calm as ice. Officers, please get him out of my sight. They dragged him out, still shouting, still claiming his right to money he'd tried to kill us for. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. I heard someone behind me say, "Did she just disinherit him in open court?" Yes. Yes. I did. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Detective Harris and Detective Wu formed a protective barrier, but I told them it was okay. I could handle this. Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel knowing your son tried to kill you? Mrs. Thompson, did you suspect anything before the attack? Mrs. Thompson, what do you want people to know about this case? I waited for them to quiet down. Then I spoke, my voice steady despite the cameras and the microphones and the weight of the world watching. 30 years ago, my son Ricardo fell from a cliff. For 30 years, I believed it was an accident. I mourned him. I carried his memory. And all that time, his killer lived in my house, ate at my table, took my money, and planned to kill me too. I paused, gathering strength. I'm a teacher. I've spent my life believing people can change, that love can heal, that family is sacred. But I was wrong. Some people are born broken, and no amount of love can fix them. My son Damien is a murderer. He murdered his 17-year-old brother out of jealousy. He tried to murder me and my husband for money. And he felt no remorse, not for one single second in 30 years. The reporters were silent, cameras rolling. If you're watching this and you love someone who hurts you, who uses you, who makes you feel crazy for questioning them, please hear me. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. DNA doesn't mean love. Family is what you build with people who would never push you off a cliff. And anyone who would hurt you doesn't deserve your protection, your money, or your silence. A reporter called out, "What will you do with your inheritance now?" I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. I'm giving it all away. Every single dollar Damien thought he'd get is going to honor Ricardo. The rest is going to organizations that help abuse victims escape their families. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one who calls you mom. Do you forgive your son? The question hung in the air. Everyone leaned forward, waiting. No, I said simply. And I never will. Forgiveness is for people who feel remorse. Damien only feels sorry he got caught. You can't forgive someone who isn't sorry. You can only make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Henry squeezed my hand. We turned and walked, rolled, in my case, back to the car. Behind us, I heard the reporters exploding with follow-up questions. But I was done. I'd said what needed saying. The trial took 3 months to prepare. In that time, DA Walsh built her case into something unshakable. She found 4 other people Damien had stolen from. Former friends, former girlfriends, even his college roommate. She documented a pattern of manipulation and theft going back to his teenage years. She also found something else. A life insurance policy on Melissa taken out by Damien 6 months ago. Beneficiary? Damien Thompson. Amount: $500,000. He was going to kill her too, DA Walsh told us in her office. After you were dead and he'd gotten the money. Melissa was just another mark. When they told Melissa this, she broke. Completely. Agreed to testify against Damien in exchange for a reduced sentence. Gave them everything. Every conversation, every plan, every moment of conspiracy. The trial began on March 15th, 25, as scheduled. It lasted 6 weeks. I attended every single day, sitting in the front row in my wheelchair, now without the cast, but I kept it anyway for effect. Let the jury see what he'd done to me. DA Walsh was surgical. She played the cliff recording so many times the jury could probably recite it. She brought in acoustic experts who confirmed Damien's voice. She displayed the emails on a massive screen. She walked the jury through his search history, his spreadsheet, his notebook. Christine Dunmore testified, crying as she described Damien bragging about killing Ricardo. Sheriff Dunmore testified, shoulders slumped with shame, admitting he'd buried a murder investigation to protect his daughter's boyfriend. The medical examiner who'd autopsied Ricardo testified that the bruising pattern was consistent with being pushed, not falling. Derek Torres, the private investigator, testified about following us for 3 weeks on Melissa's orders. And then it was my turn. I took the stand on day 12 of the trial, rolled my wheelchair to the witness box, placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. For 3 hours, I told my story. DA Walsh guided me through every detail. The hike, the fall, the ledge, the recording, the hospital, the investigation. I described finding the spreadsheet, the emails, the notebook. When she asked me about Ricardo, I broke down. Couldn't help it. 30 years of grief came pouring out. He wanted to be a veterinarian, I sobbed. He wanted to heal animals. He was gentle and kind, and he loved his little brother, and that little brother murdered him out of jealousy and kept his belongings as trophies. My baby boy died for nothing except being loved. The jury was in tears, 3 of them, openly crying. Then it was Marcus Webb's turn to cross-examine. Mrs. Thompson, he began, his tone sympathetic but probing. Isn't it possible that your memories are confused? That the head trauma... My memories are crystal clear, I interrupted. I remember my son's hands on my back. I remember the wind as I fell. I remember lying on that ledge listening to him celebrate my death. Those memories are burned into my brain forever. But the recording captured everything. My son discussing my murder, planning how to cover it up, celebrating the insurance money. There's no confusion, Mr. Webb. There's only truth. He tried for 2 hours to shake me, to create reasonable doubt, to suggest alternative explanations. But I'd been a teacher for 40 years. I knew how to stay calm under pressure. I knew how to stick to facts. I knew how to make people believe me. When I finally rolled off the stand, I caught Damien's eye. He was staring at me with such pure hatred that several jury members noticed and shifted uncomfortably. Good. Let them see who he really was. Henry testified next, his voice shaking but steady. He admitted his failure with Ricardo, admitted covering up the first murder. The jury looked horrified, but DA Walsh had prepared them. Mr. Thompson made a terrible mistake 30 years ago, she told them in her closing argument. He chose to protect the wrong son, and he's paid for that mistake every day since. But that mistake doesn't erase what Damien did. It doesn't excuse 2 murders and a lifetime of manipulation. Henry Thompson's guilt doesn't equal Damien Thompson's innocence. Marcus Webb's closing argument was desperate. He claimed the evidence was circumstantial, that the recordings could be misinterpreted, that Damien was just a troubled young man who'd made bad choices but wasn't a killer. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the forewoman was a middle-aged black woman who'd reminded me of myself. A teacher's bearing, a no-nonsense attitude. She read the verdict in a clear, strong voice. Count 1, first-degree murder of Ricardo Thompson. Guilty. Damien's face went pale. Count 2, attempted first-degree murder of Gloria Thompson. Guilty. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. He shook it off. Count 3, attempted first-degree murder of Henry Thompson. Guilty. Count 4, conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Count 5, insurance fraud. Guilty. 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 7 counts total. Every single one guilty. Judge Mendoza set sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, the courtroom was packed again. This time, some of Ricardo's old friends attended. People who'd spent 30 years thinking his death was an accident and now knew the truth. Damien Thompson, Judge Mendoza said, her voice hard as granite. You are a remorseless killer who murdered your own brother and tried to murder your parents for profit. You showed no mercy, no humanity, no capacity for love. The law requires me to sentence you according to the guidelines. I wish it allowed me to do more. She looked down at her notes. For the murder of Ricardo Thompson, life in prison without possibility of parole. Damien's face crumbled. For the attempted murders of Gloria and Henry Thompson, 2 consecutive life sentences. That's 3 life sentences, Mr. Thompson. You'll die in prison. And given your age and the nature of your crimes, I suspect that day will come sooner than you'd like. Inmates don't look kindly on those who kill their own families. She banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. As they led him out, Damien looked at me one final time. But I didn't look back. I was done looking at him. Done thinking about him. Done letting him occupy any space in my heart. He was dead to me. And soon enough, he'd just be dead. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting again. Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about the verdict? I thought about Ricardo. About his smile and his dreams and his gentleness. About 30 years of grief that would never fully heal. About the son I'd lost and the son who'd never really existed. I feel, I said slowly, like justice took 30 years too long. But it finally arrived. My boy Ricardo can rest now. And my husband and I can start to heal. What's next for you? We're moving, Henry said, speaking up for the first time. To Boulder. Starting over. We've adopted our grandsons, Melissa's boys, so they don't get lost in the system. They're good kids. They deserve better than the parents they got. And the scholarship fund, someone called out. Fully funded, I said. $247,000 for veterinary students who want to help animals, not hurt them. Ricardo's dream lives on, and that's the only legacy that matters. We drove away from the courthouse for the last time. As we passed the Jefferson County line, I felt something loosen in my chest. Some weight I'd carried for 3 decades finally lifting. Gloria, Henry said quietly as we drove, I know I don't deserve it. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For Ricardo, for lying to you, for everything. I looked at him. At this man I'd spent 42 years with. Who'd failed in the worst way possible, but had also kept me alive on that ledge. Who'd finally told the truth, even though it destroyed him. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm willing to try. For the grandsons. For Ricardo's memory. for whatever life we have left. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. That's more than I deserve. Yes, I agreed. It is. We drove in silence toward Boulder, toward our new house, toward our grandsons who needed us, toward whatever future existed beyond this nightmare. Behind us, in a Colorado State Penitentiary cell, Damian Thompson sat alone. No more charm. No more manipulation. No more easy marks. Just consequences. And I hoped they tasted like everything he'd taken from us. Bitter, cold, and eternal. 6 months after the verdict, I stood in the kitchen of our new house in Boulder, watching the sunrise paint the Rocky Mountains gold through the window. I stood, not sat in a wheelchair, not leaned on a walker. Stood on my own 2 legs, the left one still aching in cold weather but functional. Healed. Strong enough. The kitchen smelled like coffee and the cinnamon rolls I'd learned to make from a YouTube video. Behind me, I heard small footsteps on the hardwood floors. Grandma. 8-year-old Michael appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Are those for breakfast? They are, I said, smiling at my grandson. Melissa's son. The child who'd lost both parents to prison and somehow still managed to smile. Go wake your brother. They'll be ready in 10 minutes. He ran off, his footsteps thundering up the stairs with the beautiful chaos of childhood. The house, a modest 3-bedroom ranch with a fenced backyard and mountain views, echoed with life again, with second chances. I caught my reflection in the window glass. The woman looking back at me was different from the one who'd fallen off that cliff 7 months ago. My hair was shorter now, cut into a silver bob that framed my face instead of being pulled back in that tight, severe bun. I'd started wearing glasses with modern frames. Red, bold, nothing like the wire-rimmed ones that had flown off during the fall. My clothes were simpler too, jeans and a soft blue sweater instead of the dowdy floral dresses I'd worn for years. But the biggest change wasn't visible. It was internal. Something in my spine that had straightened. Something in my eyes that had hardened into steel. I'd survived my own son's murder attempt. I'd sent him to prison for life. I'd rebuilt my world from ashes. I was not the same woman. Henry appeared in the kitchen doorway, moving slowly but without the wheelchair now. His ribs had healed, though he still couldn't take deep breaths without pain. His hair had gone completely white in the past 6 months, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been in years. "The boys up?" he asked. "Getting there," I said, pouring him coffee. "Michael's excited about the field trip today. Natural History Museum." "Ricardo would have loved that," Henry said quietly. We said his name now. Often. We'd hung his high school photo in the living room, right above the fireplace. Michael and Jason, 10 years old and grieving parents they barely understood, had asked about the young man in the picture. "That's your Uncle Ricardo," I told them. "He was kind and gentle and wanted to help animals. He would have loved you both very much." I didn't tell them how he died. Not yet. They'd learn eventually. The case was too public, too documented. But for now, they knew their Uncle Ricardo was a hero in our hearts, and that was enough. The doorstep creaked, and I saw Detective Harris through the window, approaching with a folder under her arm. We'd invited her for breakfast. She'd become something like family over these months. The woman who'd helped us survive, helped us fight, helped us win. "Morning, Thompsons," she said when I opened the door. "Brought the final paperwork." Over cinnamon rolls and coffee, while the boys watched cartoons in the living room, Detective Harris spread out the documents. "Damian's appeals were denied," she said. "All 3 life sentences upheld. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled the evidence was overwhelming and the trial was fair. He's exhausted his legal options." "So it's really over," Henry said. "It's really over," Detective Harris confirmed. "He'll be in Sterling Correctional Facility for the rest of his life. No parole, no appeals, no second chances." She pulled out another document. Melissa got 12 years. She'll be eligible for parole in 8 with good behavior. The judge was somewhat lenient because she cooperated, and because ultimately she was also one of Damien's victims. He was planning to kill her too. 8 years, I repeated. She helped plan our murders, and she gets 8 years. I know it doesn't feel like enough, Detective Harris said, but she's also lost everything. Her children, her career, her reputation. She'll never work in insurance again. She'll be a felon for life, and when she gets out, she'll be a middle-aged woman with nothing. I thought about that, about Melissa in prison, thinking about the sons she'd never see grow up, about the life she'd traded for a share of blood money. Good, I said simply. Detective Harris smiled grimly. There's one more thing. She pulled out a final paper. Vincent Carrera, the gambling boss Damien owed money to. He's been indicted on federal racketeering charges. Your son's case gave us the opening we needed. Carrera's looking at 20 years federal time. The entire organization is collapsing. So some good came from this nightmare, Henry said. More than some, Detective Harris said. She pulled out a news clipping. Look at this. It was an article from the Denver Post. Ricardo's law passes Colorado legislature. New legislation requires law enforcement to investigate all suspicious deaths of minors, even when initial evidence suggests accident. Named for Ricardo Thompson, whose knife for murder was wrongly classified as accidental, the law aims to prevent future cover-ups and ensure justice for young victims. I read it twice, tears blurring my vision. They named it after him. The state representative who sponsored it was one of Ricardo's classmates, Detective Harris explained. He said Ricardo was the gentlest kid he'd ever known. Said if this law saves even one family from what you went through, it'll be worth it. Ricardo's death had changed the law, had made it harder for killers to hide behind accidents, had given meaning to 30 years of pain. He's helping people, I whispered. Even now, even from... I couldn't finish. Henry took my hand. We sat in silence, crying together for the son we'd lost and the legacy he'd left behind. After Detective Harris left, I drove to the cemetery. I went every Sunday now, sometimes with the boys, sometimes alone. Ricardo's grave had a new headstone. We'd replaced the old one with something better. Ricardo James Thompson, in 7794. Beloved son and brother, healer of hearts, his dream lives on beside it. We'd planted a small garden. Wild flowers that Ricardo had loved. A bench where visitors could sit. It had become a peaceful place, not just a grave. Hey baby, I said sitting on the bench. Big news. They passed your law, Ricardo's law. Every suspicious death of a kid in Colorado has to be investigated now. No more cover-ups, no more sheriffs burying evidence. You're protecting other children, even though we couldn't protect you. The wind rustled through the flowers. I like to think it was him listening. Damien's appeals were denied. He'll never get out, never hurt anyone else. I know you probably wouldn't want revenge. You were too good for that. But I'm not as good as you were, Ricardo. I wanted him to pay. And he is. Every single day for the rest of his life. I pulled out my phone, showing him the photo I'd taken that morning. These are your nephews, Michael and Jason, Melissa's boys. We adopted them. They're good kids, baby. They laugh and play and dream big dreams like you did. We're making sure they turn out like you, not like Damien. We're breaking the cycle. A jogger passed on the path behind me, headphones in, oblivious to my one-sided conversation. I didn't care. This was between me and my son. The scholarship fund is up and running. First recipient just got accepted to CSU's veterinary program. A young woman named Sarah who wants to work with rescue animals. She wrote us a letter, said Ricardo's story inspired her. Said she wanted to heal the world like he'd planned to. Made me cry for an hour. I touched the headstone, warm from the morning sun. I miss you every single day. I'll miss you until I die. But I'm not just sad anymore, baby. I'm also proud. Proud of who you were. Proud of what your legacy is becoming. Proud that your name means something good in this world. Your brother's name means monster now. Child killer. Patricide. The cliff killer. That's what people call him. But you're Ricardo's Law. You're the scholarship fund. You're the reason 2 little boys have a safe home. You're still helping people, even though you've been gone for 30 years. The tears came then, as they always did. But they weren't just grief anymore. They were also gratitude. Gratitude that I'd had 17 years with this beautiful soul. Gratitude that his death, however wrong, had led to changes that would save others. I have to go, baby. Taking the boys to the Natural History Museum today. You would have loved it. They have this new dinosaur exhibit. Michael's obsessed with velociraptors. Jason wants to be a paleontologist. They're smart and curious and kind. They're growing up right. I stood, my left leg protesting but holding. I love you, Ricardo. I'll always love you. And I promise that your name will outlive all of us. That your dream of healing will continue. That you'll never be forgotten. The wind picked up again, scattering flower petals across the grass. I chose to believe it was his way of saying goodbye until next week. At home, I found Henry in his workshop, a converted garage space where he'd taken up woodworking. He was building a birdhouse, his hands steady despite the arthritis. How was he? Henry asked without looking up. At peace, I said. Or at least, I am. Good, Henry said. He set down his tools, turning to face me. Gloria, I need to say something. I've been working with Dr. Patterson, the therapist, and she says I need to stop apologizing and start accepting. Accepting what? That I can't change what I did. Can't undo 30 years of lies. Can't bring Ricardo back. All I can do is be better now. Be the grandfather these boys need. Be the husband you deserve. If you'll still have me. I looked at this man I'd married 43 years ago, who'd failed in the worst way but had also fought beside me when it mattered, who'd testified against his own son even though it destroyed him, who was trying every single day to be better. I'm still angry at you, I said honestly. Some days I look at you and all I see is 30 years of lies. Some days I wonder who you really are. He nodded, accepting this. But other days, I continued, I see the man who kept me alive on that ledge, who told the truth when it cost him everything, who's building birdhouses for our new backyard and helping 2 traumatized boys learn to laugh again. And on those days, I think maybe we can survive this. Is that enough? He asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. But it's what we have, and maybe that's enough for now. He crossed the workshop and pulled me into a careful hug, mindful of our still healing bodies, but tight enough to mean something. I'll take now, he said, and I'll work for tomorrow. That afternoon, we took the boys to the museum, watched them run from exhibit to exhibit, marveling at dinosaur bones and mineral collections. Michael found a display about veterinary paleontology, studying ancient animal diseases. That's so cool, he exclaimed. You could be a doctor for dinosaurs. They're already dead, dummy, Jason said, but fondly. So you help people understand why they died, Michael insisted. That's still important. Uncle Ricardo would think so. My throat closed up. This 8-year-old boy who'd never met Ricardo understood him perfectly. On the drive home, Jason asked the question we'd been dreading. Grandma, why are our parents in prison? Henry and I exchanged glances. We'd prepared for this. Practiced with Dr. Patterson. Your parents made very bad choices, I said carefully. They hurt people. And when you hurt people, there are consequences. Did they hurt you? Michael asked, too perceptive for his age. Yes, I said simply. They did. We're sorry, Jason whispered. I pulled the car over, turning to face them both. Listen to me. What your parents did is not your fault. Not even a little bit. You are not responsible for their choices, and you are not defined by their mistakes. Do you understand? They nodded, but I could see the weight they carried. The shame of having parents in prison. The confusion of loving people who'd done terrible things. Your parents made bad choices, I continued. But you get to make different choices. You get to be different people. You get to be kind and honest and good, like your Uncle Ricardo was. That's your legacy to choose. What if we mess up? Michael asked, his voice small. Everyone messes up sometimes, Henry said from the driver's seat. But there's a difference between making mistakes and making evil choices. Mistakes are, I forgot my homework, or I said something mean. Evil is planning to hurt people and doing it anyway. You're not evil, boys. You're just kids learning how to be good people. And we're going to help you, I added. Every single day. That's what grandparents do. That night, after the boys were asleep, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine, watching stars appear over the mountains. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from Sarah, the scholarship recipient. Dear Mrs. Thompson, I started classes today at CSU. First day of veterinary school. I walked past Ricardo's memorial plaque in the veterinary building, the one you donated, and I promised him I'd make him proud. Thank you for turning your tragedy into something beautiful. Thank you for believing in students like me. Thank you for Ricardo's legacy. I'll work hard. I'll be the healer he wanted to be. I promise. With gratitude, Sarah Martinez, I showed Henry the email. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars and thinking about the strange path that had led us here. From murder to justice to healing to hope. Do you think we'll ever really be okay? Henry asked. I thought about that. About the nightmares I still had. About the flinch I couldn't control when someone walked behind me. About the way I still checked locks 3 times before bed. No, I said honestly. I don't think we'll ever be the way we were, but maybe we can be okay in a new way. Broken but healing. Scarred but surviving. Different but alive. I'll take it, Henry said. Me too, I agreed. A shooting star streaked across the sky. I didn't make a wish. Didn't believe in that anymore. But I did say a prayer for Ricardo. For the boys. For all the children who needed protection from the people who should love them. And I said a prayer for myself. For the strength to keep going. To keep building this new life from the rubble of the old one. To keep believing that good could grow from even the darkest soil. When I went to bed that night, I didn't have nightmares. I dreamed instead of Ricardo as a young boy, running through a field of wildflowers, laughing. In the dream, he turned and waved at me, and I understood what he was trying to say. It's okay, Mom. You can let go of the guilt now. You can rest. I'm at peace, and soon you will be too. I woke up with tears on my face, but for the first time in 7 months, they weren't tears of grief or rage. They were tears of release. In a cell at Sterling Correctional Facility, 130 miles away, Damian Thompson woke to another day of consequences. No charm to deploy, no marks to con, no freedom to enjoy. Just endless days stretching ahead, each one the same as the last. He'd taken everything from us. Our son, our safety, our innocence. But we'd taken something from him too. His future, his freedom, his name. He was nothing now. Just a number in a system. A cautionary tale. A monster parents used to scare their children. Be good, or you'll end up like the Cliff Killer. And we were survivors. We were healers. We were the ones who'd turned tragedy into change. Ricardo's law had passed. The scholarship fund was growing. 2 boys had a safe home. And somewhere in Colorado, a young woman named Sarah was learning to heal animals, carrying Ricardo's dream forward into a future he'd never see. That was justice, not the verdict, not the prison sentence. This continuation of good in the face of evil. This refusal to let darkness win. I got out of bed, still moving carefully, but without pain. Looked out the window at the mountains turning pink with dawn. And I thought about the woman I used to be. The one who'd stood at the edge of Red Rock Canyon 7 months ago, about to be pushed into death. That woman was gone. She died on that ledge with her broken bones and her broken heart. But this woman, this survivor, this fighter, this grandmother raising orphans and funding scholarships and changing laws, this woman was strong enough to carry all of it. The grief, the rage, the hope, the love, all of it. I was Gloria Thompson. I was 60 years old. I'd survived my son's attempt to murder me. And I was finally learning how to live again. Not the life I'd planned, not the life I'd wanted, but a life worth living nonetheless. And that, in the end, was the greatest revenge of all.